Welcome to The Best Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Bradley H. Werrell, and we're here to explore options and potentials to help us grow as individuals and as a community with one another in these difficult times and challenging times. We're exploring all manner of potentials related to the human experience, physical, psychological, medical, spiritual. It's a wonderful opportunity that we now experience in this critical phase of our human evolution. And I welcome you to join us in our podcast, become more aware, and identify with people who are helpful and supportive of you in your efforts as a human being on this planet and elsewhere too. We're going to be meeting people who are doing things that are widely variant from what is so-called normal within our society, in the creative space, within the social space. Our common purpose, seeking to generate positive potentials to improve the lives of everyone in our sphere of influence, and to expand that sphere of influence so that we may positively influence others that are not yet engaged directly with us. That's the goal here. We will learn more about each other as we go. I wish you the very best. Thank you very much for tuning in. So Andrew is my former medical assistant, and now he's a free man, not working for the hospital like I am. I'm the one with the shackles on.
I think we all have different shackles.
Everybody's there's look, here's that Bob Dylan said it, man. Look, you got to serve someone. And it's like, okay, so you pick who you serve, right?
Yep.
And it's like, well, what's that mean? I don't know. So we were just talking about homeschooling the kids, right? So you got the second grader.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not quite homeschool. The kids are home and they're on the computer, but they're still doing the school.
I guess it's not right.
How they want to do it, and I think that's part of the frustration. Is like we're kind of thrown into the mix of having to do it the way that the school wants things to be done.
What's your but see, you'll have a closer. This is interesting to me because it makes your attachment to what is actually occurring closer than what it was if they were just gone. Right. And you're like out there doing your own thing and they're doing their own thing. It's now you're like, whoa, what's happening here now?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So that's a good thing, man. Cause it's like, whoa, wait, maybe I'm not so cool with this. Right.
Yeah. No, instead of like the kids coming home and dinner, like, what did you learn in school today? Oh,
nothing.
Okay.
How do they do that?
I don't know. It's always, I don't know. I thought they'd be too young for the nothing, but they pick it up quickly.
Well, then they don't have to
just try to brush it off.
But there's an interesting guy that I talked to, a guy named Greg Enriquez. He's a professor of psychology at JMU, that's James Madison University in Virginia.
Okay.
All right. Now this guy, he's a wild man. He made this thing called the theory of knowledge. I'm like, who does this? Okay, right? He reminds me of me because I'm like, that's awesome. I would like to be aspired to such heights, okay? But it was like he did a good job, and he was like, it was impressive, but it's like he made it make sense. He did this because he was studying psychology, and he's like a PhD psychology professor, and he's like a graduate level teacher, and he's like, you know what? We have no good operating definition of what psychology is. I'm like, so he's like, I better figure this out. So he did. And that's what he's been doing that since 96. And he's been elaborating this thing. And it's like, it's right on the money. So anyway, I chatted with him and it's like the issue is this is it's hard to get back to where we started from because I've been telling this story for too long that I barely remember where we started from.
Okay.
Right. It's like, you watch the kids and they're dealing with this top-down knowledge thing. It's like some authoritative bodies trying to tell you how it is. Okay. And I'm like, what's happened since we got the internet thing going on? Is this now I can gather information better than you can tell me information. Right. So it's like the broadcast media is top-down distributed information that is poorly pixelated, that doesn't really match, doesn't make sense, because I can make better sense by looking around and making sense of it myself. Then you're telling me the thing you're telling me doesn't make sense compared to what my knowledge is based upon how I can gather knowledge by other means, right? So it's like the New York Times doesn't cut it because I'm using my brain and the internet and figuring it out and talking to other people, right? That's what's going on. And it's like, okay, so you're like witnessing the top down thing trying to work into your kid's life when you're like, okay, maybe that doesn't make sense so much.
Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's when you aspire for your kids to learn a level of critical thinking, and that's not necessarily
That's not interesting to the people who
they
want to tell them what to think, right?
Yeah. And as much as I wish that they could avoid it, I think
Wait, avoid what? Hang on, I gotta turn this off. Go ahead.
avoid the kind of top-down bureaucratic lessons of how the system works or how to fit into the box or whatnot. It's like
So interesting.
I think maybe there's a place for that as long as they can think outside of it for themselves. I think how to fit into, or at least to experience what society wishes of someone has its place.
We call that it's not adjustment, but it's close. It's adaptation, right? To be properly adapted to the world so that the gears mesh like that, right? And it's like that which you're trying to adapt to may be maladjusted.
Right.
And that's kind of where I think we're at, which is like the system, right? The establishment is not right. And it's like trying to make everybody force us into adjustment to that system or adaptation to that system. And it's like, yeah, we don't want to do that because that doesn't make any sense to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the rub here, because I lost a friend this summer. Okay, now like I don't know if I lost him or not, but I pray he's not lost, but I presume that he is, because he inflamed me so badly the last time we spoke. It was stunning. It was like this. So he's a good, he's a Bernie bro. And I told him that I thought he's ideologically possessed. Okay. And it was quite interesting. This is interesting. This is interesting. He goes like, this is, what he did was he goes, look, I wanted to tell you what I was thinking. So now he's dissociated himself from his thinking. And he told me what he was thinking. And it was demonic bullshit of such a nature said, if I see him in my town, I'm thinking of shooting him. Okay. Which is like, that's no small thing, right? Because I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to tell you something like that unless I actually feel it welling up from me, right? There's no business of him in my town. And he told me such things that caused me to think that, which is like odd, right? And like the day before, it was interesting because I talked to him and I was like, the issue is this, man. It's like, I just don't want you to end up in the other trench. Does that make sense? Because it's like that. I don't want you to end up in the other trench because we don't need to have a conflict here.
Okay.
And it's like, that's where we're at. And it's like, so we've had conversations. So Andrew's been working with me for long enough that he's been irritated by me enough. And I feel for the man, right? Which is like this. It's like this. It's like, because I told him not to bite the socialist apple because no, don't do that, right? And it's like, well, I hope that was useful, not too irritating.
I'm open to being challenged.
That's good. You're all right. It's like you got out of the hospital system. That was good. I'm still working on it. Okay. Which is, it's just god awful business. It's like, so, shoot, it's like we're working and we're trying to make it work. But it's like I tell the patients though, now I tell the patients I'm having the conversation. It's like, that I'm the bait. Because you just want something from me and I can give it to you fairly easily, except for all this intervening nonsense, which is the third parties that are entwining themselves into our affairs and charging you too much money and making sure I have to jump over all the hurdles to make the thing happen that you need to have happen. And I'm happy to do it, but it's like they bribe me by paying me too much money to do it. And it's like, you know what? They don't pay me enough money to do it. They don't pay me enough because they increase the bullshit load faster than they increase the pay scale. It's like, that's impressive because they pay me a lot of money. I'm like, goddamn impressed. Like, you people are very impressive because that's a lot of bullshit. And it's okay. And it's like, I'm the bait. And it's like, I regard it as unethical that I participate. And that's like, that's interesting. And I never anticipated that either. So like, I'm trying to create a online telemedicine service for cash only, lower the fees, like $20, $30 for a visit. Because I'm like, what's $130 to get a prescription from me for?
Right. I mean, seeing the doctor is probably the cheapest part of the system,
I know, but
right?
it's like you gotta get your picture taken, and we gotta enter all your data into the database so that the database can contain all the information that you don't want to share with anybody, because that's going to be shared with somebody that you don't know who it is, by the people you don't know who they are, for the purposes that you don't know about, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, hell, I'm the bait, man. I'm like the
Right.
it's
But then it's
awful.
I mean, the script is one thing, and then it's the prescription, and
All right,
then it's the specialist, and then it's
that's right. It's
the
like
MRI, and
all right. So it's like the system. It's like well, what's that mean? It's way too expensive, and it's gonna collapse. And it's like, well, okay. So I'm like, my theory right now is that the whole thing is collapsing, and it's like, well, as it's collapsing, what's that mean, right? And it's like the collapsing is coming because of the withdrawal of of consent by the population, because they recognize that it doesn't make sense. And they're like, wow, you're ripping me off. Everybody knows they're getting ripped off, and they know that they're getting ripped off, and they're like, why would I consent to that? So the whole system is doing this, like fall. It's fall. It's like the leaves are coming off the tree, right? And it's like, so we're waiting for the spring to come again, and we can watch the new growth come out. And it's like, that's the issue. What's occurring? And it's like, well,
are you seeing a change in patients that they
no, the
want an
patients.
alternative?
Oh man.
I mean, not necessarily like
Yeah, they do
for the system, but
no, they do. They
still want their
recognize it.
script rather than changing
No,
their lifestyle, right?
that's a different function.
Okay.
Okay, that's a different function. No, like right now, it's just all about the COVID-19 and the mask and nonsense. And it's like, okay, it's interesting because as soon as I go in the room, they're wearing a mask mostly when I go in the room, and I'm like, take the mask off if you want to. And I had a few people say they want to wear the mask. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to fight with you about that, because I think it's not appropriate, but I'm not going to. You get to think whatever you want, man, because it's you're paying for being here. I don't care enough to. I'm not going to fight with you because it's rude,
Okay.
right? But it's like, take the crazy mask off, and then I'm like, for 3 weeks now. This is my third week. I'm like, okay, look, don't put the mask back on. Walk out of here like a human being. I'm doing a social experiment. If anybody challenges you, tell them the doctor order. It's on me, okay? I don't care, right?
If they chose to take it off.
If they stay with it off and anybody says something to you, you tell them the doctor told you to do it, because I'll take the responsibility, because I don't care, okay? It's okay. It's okay. And that's like, most people do that, and they're okay with that. And they look, I tell them to take the mask off. They're like, thank you. I'm like, of course, thank you, because honestly, this is silly. It's over the top. In fact, I'm reporting the CDC director, Dr. Redfield, to the Board of Medicine of Maryland as well as Virginia, for the purposes of unethical and unprofessional behavior, because of his recommendations, which I don't regard as scientific in the least place. And he has to answer somebody, and those are the only people that I can figure out who to make him talk to.
And which recommendations? The mask?
He said, wear a mask and don't wear a mask.
Okay.
Well, you better do some explaining now, because I don't understand what you're asking. What are you talking about, doctor?
What was the time?
It was March and now.
Okay.
So his opinion changed from no mask to mask. Of course, mask.
Yeah, because I mean, my understanding is the no mask was because of like supply, and at the time, like
masks just don't work.
To have masks,
masks just don't work.
They don't like reduce viral load.
It's a very interesting function, and no, they don't. And I don't think so. Okay. And it's like, I'm open to new evidence. Okay, so Dr. Ring did the work, and he's like, he found a study from 1981, which is like this: surgical masks were found to increase patient infections in surgery. No surgical mask reduced the amount of surgical infections for the patient.
Surgical masks on
the physicians, yeah.
Okay.
Now, how about that? Unexpected, right? And how do you explain it? It doesn't matter. It was thousands of patients. It's like, well, it's no small damn thing. It's like, it's very interesting. It's like, what does that mean? I don't quite know what it means. I'm like,
yeah.
But it's like, that's from 1981. So it's like, I wouldn't trust any study in the last 5 years, probably. Because it's like, I don't trust the science, because it's like, I think the science is being perverted for their own benefit, to create the right answers that are being desired by the people who fund it.
So, I mean, after that study in 81, like physicians in surgeries still continue to wear masks.
Of course.
Okay, so
What?
what happened?
What? You think they listen to the science and they pay attention to the science? No, there's other habits at work here.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense? And it's like, so you like to think that it's a rational function that's occurring. No, it's mostly an emotional function, right? They say 95% of a human behavior stems from emotional functions and not from actual reason. We create reason to justify why we did what we did, right? That's what I was talking about Enriquez for, okay? He's a genius, man. Dr. Enriquez is a genius, okay? And it goes like this, is, okay, so you, as a father, you get this, which is like when the kids hit 2, man, they say, why? Why is this guy blue? Why is this? Why is that? Why is that? They just keep asking why, right? And it goes, so this is an interesting function, which is like this emergent property of consciousness. When you become conscious that you're a social actor. Okay, before that, the kid's like a pet. They just obey. They don't pay too much attention, and they just go, okay. They just do what you tell them to do because they listen to the authority figure, right? But when they hit this 2 years old, they recognize that they have agency, right? And they're like, okay, but why do you say this guy's blue? Why is this guy blue? And I don't have a good answer for that, but you get the point. And so what he calls this is the property that emerges is justification. So in a social sense, we have justification as why do we do what we do? And we have to justify it to each other so that it all makes sense to everybody, right? And so what appears to have occurred is that the system of justification is collapsing because it's like the reason we do the stupid things we do, which is pay too much money to people who don't deserve it, doesn't make any sense to us, right?
Fair.
And it's like, because they didn't earn it. The top 0.1% did not earn it. They're stealing it. That's what our estimation of it is, right?
Some. But I mean, I think that's also the idea is that they did earn it, right? They had the idea, the ingenuity.
Yeah, no, we don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Okay.
I'm not for 1 minute. Not for 1 minute.
They learned how to like tweak the system and
no, they learn how to corrupt the
innovation.
System. No, they learn how to corrupt the system to make it so that they can't lose. That's my estimation of it. And I don't know what your estimation of it is. The interesting function of it is this. So the difference between me and my revolutionary friend, right, is that he thinks it's necessary to go to violent means. And I'm like, I don't accept that we need to go to violent means, right? I think we can come to a civil solution of this. That's the interesting divergence, which is like, what's the significance of this fact? They didn't earn it. We can come to a civil conclusion or we can come to a violent conclusion, right?
I'm not sure which way to take this, but I mean, they could earn it and it still not be best for this health of society.
I don't think they can earn it. They don't think so. I don't think there's any way in hell they can earn it. I don't think you earned it. If you think you earned it, you're deluded. That it's like, I'm sorry, you're mistaken. That it's a privilege that's being granted to you by this social order that is not earned. That you don't get to have 85% of everything because you're the privileged few who earned it. Because no, you didn't earn that. Everybody worked and everybody else was pilfered from and you gained. It's like, that makes no sense to me. And that's like, I don't believe it makes sense to you either. And that's quite interesting that you're arguing with me on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the rub, right? So it's like, then how do you without coercion?
Wait, no. It's like
the socialism.
Oh, okay, that's good. It's like a perverse, man. You're like coming at me from the backside. It's like this backwards argumentation. I like that. That's amusing to me.
I'm just trying to understand.
No, it's good because it goes like this. It's like the privileges that are awarded to the people who own. Okay. They're privileges. It's just privileges. And it's like corporate ownership is privileges. And they're granted to corporations. And it's like that's a political function. And it's like it's entirely political and only political. That's the correct solution to the problem, which is a civil solution. Okay? Which is we just withdraw the privileges of corporate ownership. Your corporation is not a person, even though they claim it is a person. It's like silly bullshit. And it's like, no, a corporation is a creature of the state and only a political creature. So it's a fiction of legal fiction. right? So it has no value. It's a fake.
So like
I can say that
redistribution or
no, we just say there's no corporations now, no corporations at all. And so now that changes the game entirely, right? And it's like one of the fictions that causes the wealthy to win is they make foundations that are tax exempt. It's like, that's a legal fiction too. What the hell is that? You don't get to do that.
I mean, but like even on an individual base, I mean, I think there's a lot of sole proprietors that still use the tax system and
Of course,
probably still have a large.
Yeah, no, I don't
amount
know,
of
but see,
means
my
that-
estimation of it is there should be no taxation on any individual at all. But every individual should be responsible for their actions.
Okay.
Okay, so it's like this. So the individual will be like, look, man. So the corporations get away with just amazing miscreations, which are just rude. Which is like they pollute stuff, they hurt people's lives, and nobody suffers. They pay a fine, and it's like, well, that's nonsense. No, the corporate guy who said it was okay for them to do it, he's liable. You own the thing, you did it. I don't care if you think you didn't do it because your employee did it. You did it. You're responsible for your corporation or your whatever personally, right? So you pollute you just like this thing where they poured all this crap, the oil in the Gulf of Mexico. You're responsible for all the guys who can't fish the shrimp out of the place. It's like you pay, right? That's reasonable to me. It's like the premise is, but the issue is like this funny thing with the leftists. They like seem to go, you can't go backwards. And I'm like, I can go backwards. You can't tell me I can't go backwards, right? The leftists are like, no, we got to have forward progress. They like all socialist nonsense. And I like find it to be simply offensive, which is like this. You can't imagine going backwards because your mind is too small.
Going backwards, like addressing past wrongs?
No, it's like this. It's like we can't regress to a better state. And I'm like, we can regress to a better state. We don't agree because you can't imagine retrograde motion because you're progressive or whatever you call yourself. It's like the premise is that you can't look to the past and draw some value out of it is foolishness.
And you don't think that that's partly what's engaged in some progressive thought of addressing like the change in industrial agriculture and wanting to return to like small farms? Like,
no, I think that's a regressive function, and I think that's okay. I think that's a good plan because it's like this is like I think what we're gonna do is all go back to the farms, man. And it's like, well, I don't know what that means exactly, and I don't know how it looks, but it's like no, I think the progressives are like, no, we got to have socialism, man. We got to just radically change the relationships between property and people. And it's like, no, I don't think that's a good plan because you're fully deracinate the people from their past is like, that doesn't sound like a good plan to me. And I'm like, probably requires violence and I don't think it will bode well for the people who think that's a good idea.
Well, there needs to be some redistribution of wealth.
There needs to be a redistribution of value for work. Because right now the workers are getting ripped off and the not workers are getting value for nothing, and to hell with them. Okay? I don't think that you should get nothing for nothing. I think that you should get value for creating value. And I think that the workers should benefit from the work they provide. Right? And I don't have a problem with that. And I was like, I think that the people who want to get stuff for free, because you owe me. I'm like, I'm afraid you're wrong. I'm afraid you're wrong. And I'm like willing to go to the mat on this one. Okay. And it's like, I don't think that's a reasonable thing to argue because it's like, well, just be in the other trench. It's okay. Because I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with that. It's like the issue is that people who want to take other stuff from people who produced value, well, they can fight for it if they want because you're making a claim. Okay, so it's like this. It's like this a funny thing, which is you're living on stolen land, right? And I'm like, well, that's a claim. That's a claim. And it's like this. It's a claim by people who lost because they couldn't enforce their claims because their claim was superseded by the guys who enforced their claim on the same land. And it's like, it's just claims. Okay? Claim whatever you want and enforce it by whatever means you can. Good luck with that.
But without violence?
I didn't ever say that.
I thought you did with your friend, the Bernie bro, that
I would prefer it
things
to
can
be,
be
I would
resolved with
prefer to be without violence, but I'm not opposed to violence.
Okay.
Okay. Which is to say, I thought if I see the man, I'm going to shoot him or think about shooting him. Okay. Which is rude. And I really reject the premise that he caused that to, he inspired that in me. He induced that feeling in me. Okay. Which I hold him to be responsible for, not me, because it's like, what are you doing? What in the hell are you thinking? Right.
But it's like impossible to have enforce a cultural norms or society without violence. I mean, I think silent violence is the premise of just about any society, and that's how.
Well, no. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that there's a presumption of violence. Okay.
Okay.
You don't get it. I get to stand on the 3 square feet that I inhabit, or whatever the number is, maybe 9, because that seems reasonable. About 1 meter diameter or something like that, right? And it's like, does that mean that violence is inherent in the system? Well, I don't think so. I don't think so. But it's like this. It's like, look, I'm not going to impose on you, and I expect you not to impose on me, right? So if you impose on me, you should expect violence, right? And it's like, I expect violence if I choose to impose on you, and I'm not trying to impose on you. There's no need for violence, okay? And it's like, but violence is necessarily inherent in the human condition, because it's like, I'm going to defend myself. It's like a God-given right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, just, I mean, how do we get back the trillions of dollars from?
Oh no, and it's like, I don't. That's a crazy talk.
Or if the land is there because of rightful domination, because they're the ones that seize the land, and
yeah, no, I don't have a good answer for that one. It's like, my dad asked me. My dad's a history professor, retired, and he said this. He said something about. I said something about the Sioux Treaty of 1871. He goes, "What are you going to do? Give them back North Dakota, South Dakota, and whatever else?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Yeah, because we signed a treaty. You should abide by the treaty." He didn't like that answer, because it's like, well, okay, it's de facto done. I'm like, okay, and I'm like, I know how to deal with guys who make treaties like you do. Right? It's none of it nice. It's unpleasant and it's rude, which is like, you can't trust them for a minute, because they're gonna use violence and justify it by a de facto function or something like that. It's not acceptable to me. But it's like, well, what's that mean? Well, we're here we are, right? And how do we negotiate the past we're currently in, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, so there's a whole bunch of money stolen and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, we just take away the corporate rights. Because the owners are making claims. And we can say, your claims are no good, sorry. Right? So they had this thing back in Pennsylvania. They brought in a bunch of what they call Scots-Irish. So they're Scots that got landed in Ireland. Northern Ireland, they're Protestants, right? I don't know if they're probably Catholics. I don't know if they're Catholics or Protestants. I don't really care. But they're not Irish, okay? But they're Scots, and they're living in Ireland, and they're just defending themselves from everybody, because everybody's attacking them. They imported these guys into the New World, and they're like, well, if we're going to put these guys, they're tough. They're tough because they've been battle tested by all this adversity, and give them some land in between the Indians and the English. Because it's like, they're going to keep the Indians from attacking us, and that's good. They're going to defend us because they're tough. So they did. But what the problem was they had in Pennsylvania was these guys would inhabit the land of the gentry, and they're just squatting on the land. And it's like, you can't be here. They'll bring some police in and tell them to leave, and they'll leave. And then when the guys leave, who are the police, they re-inhabit it, right? And it's like, that's how you do it, man. It's like, yeah, we just steal the stuff from the guys who claim too much. You claim it so much, and it's like, yeah, you can't enforce that claim. Oh, all phone calls, man. It's like so the issue is this is the claims are enforced by the political function. Police is a political function. Okay.
Okay.
So we just say we're not going to enforce that claim. That claim doesn't mean anything. We don't care. Right? It's like these big corporations like Monsanto or whatever. What value do they bring? I'm not so convinced they bring positive value. And so it's like this, you can own it, 1,000,000 billion shares of it. I don't care. But it's like the value of the share is worth whatever we agree to allow that corporation to do, which is like can be limited because it's like, yeah, you're poisoning everything. So your shares can go to nothing. Okay. Now what do you got? Right. So you're changing the structure of the social environment by other means besides forcibly extracting. But you know what I mean?
Well, my understanding with Monsanto was like their shares were pretty much.
I don't know. I'm not an expert. Okay.
Okay. But then I thought they got like a huge bailout and they let the.
I don't know. I'm not trying to go into this detail. Yeah. I'm like this, but I'm like.
But it's just interesting that instead of, it's one thing to. Sometimes I don't even think we have to intervene to like bring it down. It's more that we intervene to protect the system. Like.
Oh yeah, no. I'm like this is like we prevent that from happening. Mm-hmm. That's my thinking. It's like this. It's like I don't care what the price is of Monsanto. I don't own any of that. I don't care. And so why would I put any investment in political intervention to support it? It makes no damn difference to me. Right? I don't see any value here.
Right.
And that's my thinking is like the issue is this is excessive control. Like I regard it as corruption, political corruption, which is the political class is too interested in what the money class wants them to do, right? And they're not interested in what the regular Joes and people are doing. That's the issue. And it's like, so I'm like this. It's like you're working for the wrong people, mm-hmm. which is like okay. Now we start talking about some getting radical because it's like okay, we can. You work hard enough on that other edge. You're not working for me means you're working against me, which is like, that's treasonous activity, right? And that's okay. We know what to do with them too. It's okay.
But I mean, it goes into not only like more like geopolitics too. Like
geopolitics is funny, man.
You know, it's having to keep those dominant place in the world stage. I think that's the interest and the value that a lot of these corporations bring is when it comes into.
Yeah. That's like, I don't care. Right?
Okay.
No, what
not America first?
That's a different function.
Okay.
I think America first is like, America works for America. Okay? But it shouldn't work against the other nations. It should work with the other nations. Does that make sense? But it should work with America in mind in first when I interact with you on a reasonable, rational basis. Does that make sense? As opposed to, look, I'm not trying to squeeze you or force you to do stuff, which is like, I find that to be offensive too. And I think we would agree on that. But it's like, it's tricky business, huh?
Yeah.
And it's like, but I'm not an imperialist by any means. I would have been a good imperialist when I was 20, man. And fortunately, I had
all the answers.
I had a broken back, so they wouldn't let me be a good imperialist. I'd have been a bad Nazi and killed a bunch of people, and it would have been made my soul tarnished. And I'm very pleased that I wasn't allowed to participate, to be honest with you. And it's like, it's okay. But the bottom line is and I would have been a victim of what I would call it's taking advantage of the innocent for purposes that are questionable, right? Like amoral purposes, which is like, I find that about the most offensive function is to take advantage of the innocence of youth for the benefit of something or somebody that is not properly based in a moral stature, right? So, it's like, the young people that are, I think they're properly motivated that join the military for proper means, and then they go into some imperial thing that's going to kill a bunch of people that didn't ever really do anything to America, never threatened America. And I'm like, wow, you're debauching the innocence That's about as low of a crime as it can get. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's rude. It's just rude. It's just utterly rude. And I'm like, that has to be stopped. So it's like, well, that's how I estimate the whole process.
There's just no shortage of ills that need to be corrected.
Well, that's okay. And it's like, well, what's that mean? We're not going to fix them today either, kids. Right? And that's okay. The trick is, though, it's like this: it's lining it all up and trying to make it make sense enough as we move forward, right? So now I'm like this. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, I want to buy some land and be a farmer. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, I thought about you because I'm like, well, maybe I want to grow some tilapia and make some of that fish farming. And I'm like, I could do that too, and growing some cows because I would go east and you can go, they say 60 acres of cow here. Okay, in the east is 2 or something like that. It's just crazyville. It's like, wow. So I'm like, okay, I could grow some cows, but I could tilapias grow like crazy. But you need energy to do that, right? Andrew Drew, he was growing fish, man.
Started the process.
That's all right. And it's like, oh, I thought of you, man. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna end up being a tilapia farmer probably with the cattle in the background or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, here you got, I mean, the energy of the sun. A lot of the larger tilapia and
this place though, it's just too hot here, man. Don't you think? It's like you got to cool the pond.
Right. I mean, there's a lot done with like shade
you're trying to hit it at 70 degrees, right?
For tilapia, probably.
Yeah, I think 70 degrees.
That's probably the low that you'd want.
You want just average, man. Just wants to be 70. Fish don't like to change their temperature much. It's like the average temperature here, 3 feet below the ground is 70 degrees. So it's like it's way hotter than that. And the surface temperature will change a lot.
Yeah.
Like here, it's like right now it's 58 degrees in the morning and probably 90s in the daytime. It's September.
Yeah, it's been dropping like 40.
Really?
This morning it was like 40.
Wow, I didn't get 40. I got 58. No, I'm not looking real close.
Well, it might be a little cooler in where I'm at.
Where are you living?
Down in Wheatfields.
Okay. It's like I got a big fan over here and I run the fan all night and it lowers the temperature. Like the AC in this room it'll probably kick in. It might kick in, but it hasn't kicked in all day because I get the temperature down to maybe 63 at night by just blowing the fan through.
Right. And I mean, there's creative stuff I've seen in Arizona with using ground temperature as like a
that's expensive
as
though.
A reservoir,
yeah,
or
man,
fans or to bring in
I like
air
that.
in the night
it's
or
like
day and cycling it in.
Put a cooling system under the ground like 3 or 4 feet down and it's all good, man. I like this. It's all very entertaining.
Yeah. So again, energy. It's like
energy is useful.
It's interesting how people can be creative. It doesn't reduce 60 acres to 3 or
no, it's like you need water, man. It's like okay, until they get the free energy and the desalination and big pipelines coming from California, we're gonna keep on trying to be dry in Arizona, right?
Yeah, but let's see if we can bring the Colorado back first.
Right? And it's like the anyway, so they're like, I don't know. How about that? We covered a lot of bases, man. Is that entertaining conversation for you?
Yeah. Just jammering on. It's like
Andrew's all right.
It's been a while since we've chatted about the ways of the world.
It's a rough world, isn't it, man? It's like, wow, it's like been such a rough summer. Andrew, when did you quit with the hospital?
It's approaching a year. I think
shit.
I think it was
no shit. I'm very impressed because it's like it's been a long time and it's like been a hard year. This has been a hard year. It's like, wow, I think it will not get easier before November. Why do you laugh at that? It's just funny.
Or after.
Right. I don't know. I think it's going to be a wacky world for a while. And it's like, what's that mean? I don't know. It's going to be okay, man. The main thing I tell the folks is just keep calm because it's like it's okay. It's going to get wackier and there's going to be more agitation coming.
Keep your powder dry.
That's right, brother. That's right. I got 3 rules, right? Keep your powder dry. Know who your friends are. Wait for the signal. And I don't know what that means, but you'll know. Right?
But let's see if we can resolve things without violence.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a civil man. I'm like, I told my neighbor, right? So my neighbor across it. So across the street lives a neighbor. He's a savage. He's truly a savage. He's like, I don't need police. I'm not voting in the election. I told him I wanted him to vote for someone, and he wouldn't vote for either one because he's like, it doesn't matter who gets elected. It's and I'm like, he goes, I don't need police. I'm like, because he'll handle it. He's a roughneck, and I'm like, he's right, man. I'm like, so I just make sure I'm very friendly with him. He's one of the ones that called when I was here.
Oh, okay.
right? He's supposed to fix my garage door because it's busted, and I can't find a garage door fixer. And he'll, okay, man,
It's been a while.
would you fix my garage door? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it, and I'll pay him to do it. And it's like, but like I say, I want to keep him happy because he's a good fellow, and he's a savage, man. He will make sure that you don't cross him. So he has his line, right?
Mhm.
That's how it works in the real world, right?
Yeah.
That's the real world.
Yeah. What do
We're
we use
savages. Ultimately, we boil down to a savage. Okay. And it's like, okay, you have to accept that, right? You don't have to accept that, but if you don't, you're just a fool.
Mm.
Right? Because you're waiting for the police when the savage is taking care of your business. Right?
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Let's stay wild.
Wait, the other one
Than
is this
being,
one. This is a funny.
domesticated.
There was the other guy who lived next door to him. Is the guy who sat next to me in med school for 2 years.
Yeah, small world.
Right?
I believe that's like the first Biden-Harris signs I've seen.
That's okay. And then, like I say, well, somebody got to be the outlier, right? He's a good fellow. He's a good fellow. And I'm like, okay, I won't say anything else because he's a good man. And it's like, well, we try to do our best and act in a civil fashion. That's all. With the underlying notion that there's savagery afoot here, right? And that's okay. We have to embrace that. It's the inner savage, right?
Okay.
Is that fair? Embrace the inner savage and recognize that that guy has an inner savage too. And you're like, okay, but you
don't cross him.
That's right. Use your brains because this is a dangerous situation, kids, right?
Yeah.
That's all very good, man. Andrew, I want to thank you for coming out here.
All right. That was good talking.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, good time.
I like this. So I'm going to show you what I did. I'm going to show Andrew right now what we did. I was working on the veneer on these bookcases because goodness gracious. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Best Medicine Podcast with Bradley H. Werrell, D.O. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe below, either over there or over there. Also, if you're interested in a medical consultation with myself, there's also information below.